Are your arguments going around in circles in a never-ending game of tit for tat, feeling like you just can't seem to get through to your partner? I'm Ronald and I'm a relationship and family therapist. We're going to learn about defensiveness and what to do and what to avoid, and we're going to change your perspective on arguments about who's right and who's wrong, which will hopefully help you break this type of defensive pattern in arguments. Defensiveness is an attempt to protect oneself in the midst of conflict from a perceived attack. And it's often triggered by criticism. And the underlying sense is blame. I'm not the problem, you are. And it keeps couples circulating in conflict. And unfortunately, there's no end to a circle. So you can diffuse defensiveness by just taking responsibility, even if it's for a small part of the problem. Characteristic of defensiveness is counterattacking, which is the complete opposite of taking responsibility. It is in fact trying to lay the responsibility on the other person. By taking responsibility, you are saying to your partner, we are in this problem together, rather than you are the problem. Because healthy relationships, they don't have winners or losers. Avoid the word but. But erases all that came before it. Even if what you said was really positive, including but is an attempt to acknowledge the other person while sneaking in your own agenda. And it just doesn't work. But only invites rebuttal. Avoid the words always and never. When we make statements to get our point across, we may use these absolutes. And by using always and never, it invites the other person to think of the one time that it didn't happen, and just continues the cycle. Defensiveness also comes about as couples try to convince their partner of their version of the events, often presented as the facts or the truth. And this can feel like an attack on a person's reality, which is essentially an attack on their existence. Not their physical existence, but their emotional and psychological. And you need to defend yourself when threatened. And so couples get stuck in arguing about who's right and who's wrong. Let's do an exercise. Name what you see in this picture. So, did you see a rabbit? Or did you see a duck? Or did you see something completely different? So, who's right and who's wrong here? The answer? It depends on your perspective. We live in what I call subjective realities, which means what you see is different to what I see, and what I see is probably different to what the next person sees. And so, what's right and what's wrong simply depends on one's perspective, because everyone is living their own truth. Nobody is necessarily right or wrong. So it's possible that your version of events is very different to your partner's version of events. And being in relationship often means navigating these two subjective realities that are often at polar opposite ends. And if you're looking to be right each and every single time, you may find it very challenging to be in relationship with another. And so to those couples who are stuck in this defensive pattern, I would ask, do you want to be right? Or do you want to get this right? By understanding that we live in subjective realities, and we can begin to validate our partner's experience. Validation doesn't mean to accept what your partner says as the truth. It just means to acknowledge your partner's subjective reality, to acknowledge that it is a possibility from a certain perspective. Validation diffuses defensiveness because there's no longer that need to hold on to one's truth if the other person is acknowledging and understanding it. Validation opens up dialogue and understanding as opposed to defensiveness, which closes it down. So what did you see in the picture?